right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Kiefer, Zulfikar, Wakil. Good evening, sir, and colleagues, if you're listening to this. So, welcome to our podcast. Our topic revolves around data privacy and Guyana's current push towards e-identification. Now, I want you to picture this for a moment, and this is something that can happen. I want everybody to just take a second and think about this here. Now, imagine you went to bed tonight. Tomorrow morning, you wake up, the first thing you do, you open Facebook. And what you found is all your personal details online. Your address, your phone number, your tax information, your license, all the speeding tickets you got, you found all of that online. Now, what would this mean for you? What would this mean for your family? What would this mean for your safety? Now, with Guyana moving towards national EIDs and digital government services, these questions are no longer going to be posed at classes at university. These are no longer hypothetical questions. They are things that we must take into consideration seriously because e-identification is becoming a reality. Now, in our podcast today, we're going to explore data privacy in Guyana and our current push towards e-identification. What our country's recent experiences with data breaches tell us about our readiness for EIDs and all the challenges that it brings along. So, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for that introduction, guys. It was very spot on. Yeah, I noticed you didn't mention the name of the podcast, which is what I suggested, Data on the Rocks, but it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, thanks for pointing out, Mr. Keeper.
So you say this thing, and now you got me thinking about the whole waking up and seeing or somebody, like in America, how they got this whole identity theft where someone could steal your social security number and become you. Now I'm worried that I wake up in the morning and then see somebody take a whole loan out with my name. Well, I know there's the credit score system in Ghana, but it's not really like a foundation or like enforced in the same nature as it is in the US and other countries, where we're dependent on taking a loan, or our loan is determined on that credit score. So now you got me worried here.
Imagine if they go to courts and take out like a high interest loan to buy a phone. You got stuck with that bill.
So now we have. Now I'm wondering if this EID is going to create more problems than the solution is proposed to address. Are we ready for something like this? Are there policies in place right now to keep us as citizens safe from identity theft? And well, there's the cybercrime law, but does it need amendment? No.
I think we do, in addition to the cybercrimes law, Guyana did, in 2023 actually, we passed the Data Protection Act. It was assented by the president, but it's not really in places yet. The subject matter minister, which is Mr. Anand, he has actually put it into effect. So it's there, but it's not operationalized as yet. It has a couple of things. It's talked about the regulators. There's going to be a whole data protection office and going to be led by a data protection commissioner. There's going to be enforcement in place. Again, we don't know what that looks like as yet. And of course, there's like penalties. I think there's up to like $15 to $20 million imprisonment for intentional violation. When it comes to companies, a percentage of their annual revenue, like upwards of 4 to 5%. So it is there, but it hasn't been put into effect as yet. So I don't know.
So if it's not in effect, right? I'm hearing government workers like from NDMA and other agencies are currently in the process of getting their EIDs. That means if their data right now is stored on government data centers, etc. So are they like the test dummies for this whole process?
We won't put you in that, Kifo. We won't put you in.
Well, somebody has to be the dummy or the guinea pig for this to be a success. And by the looks of it, the government employees, might be it. But to add to that part of the fear, given that the EID has to roll out, companies now have to think, well, how can we not get sued by our customers that somebody else threw in with their documents, got a loan, or took out everything from their bank account without us knowing that it wasn't the person? Because
All
banks
right.
can't fully remove a manual check aspect, because even though you might submit the ID, your proof of address, and so forth, you have to have something physical or unique to a human that you can verify that, oh well, if somebody else gets man stuff.
But I
All
think
right.
we're headed to the point, or we're heading to this future where these services that we have to go in person to apply for are going to be online because they're pushing for this whole online banking incentive and starting up accounts online for citizens. I think they're gonna put that whole loan process online as well.
All right, for other listeners, is it a physical ID or is it an online service?
It's both. It's both a physical ID and then you have your digital ID counterpart.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the early days of the in Estonia, when they talk about having the digital ID, you had like an actual physical ID, and let's say you need to vote. They did electronic voting, and if you want to vote, there's a little USB thing you plug into your computer, then you take your card and you swipe it, and that verifies that there's a couple of other things that you have to do, and that verifies that you are who you say you are, and you can vote online. Everything in Estonia you can actually do online. The only thing you can't do is buy land. That's like the only limitation.
Oh shucks, that's gonna cause a problem in Guyana though.
Which one, buying land or voting?
Buying land.
Yeah, well, that was the buying land part is what they restricted it to. I can't remember exactly why they did that.
Because this EID is meant to make life easier, putting more important information online, services online.
So, do we like look at? Do you think they looked at countries that failed to implement this whole EID and like probably learn from their mistakes? For example, the UK, they're currently getting pushed back for the EID. They're trying to force citizens to get it, and if they can't get it, then they can't get paid for work. I think the whole agenda behind it was they're saying that immigrants are coming in the country getting jobs and taking away wages, blah 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 blah. And now, in order to get paid, you now have to have an EID, and there's data protection concerns, more fear of government surveillance, even though they have this whole Big Brother CCTV thing going on, and there's just this massive public opposition over data privacy, right? So do you think we would face that kind of pushback from the citizens, or do you think the citizens have that power in Guyana to even push back against this kind of thing? Because all we have to do is just not go in and get an EID. What is going to be in place to say, hey, you have to get this EID? What are they going to tie to it? Are they going to tie my cash grant? If I can't get a cash grant if I don't have an EID? So this is what I'm wondering. What are they going to do to make me get this EID? Because if I don't want it, I just probably won't get it.
Well, go ahead.
You gotta take example to the parking meter. So you gotta look, see if this gonna be one of the failed attempt to one of these modernized system they're trying to bring in.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing that comes to mind, right? The parking meters fiasco in Georgetown. But I think what Guyana has the opportunity to do is kind of leapfrog those growing pains that the developed country had. Like in the UK, we can learn from their mistakes and kind of bypass all of that. One of the things that they have to do is actually have to make the government services, actually make them available. So I know this year when there's a whole passport thing, you can apply for your passport online. So once that process is good, once it works, once it's successful, I think they will have more evidence and they will have more use cases to say, look, we have been successful. Persons are getting to renew their passport, apply for their passport online, and it's just making things easier. Right, so they just have to ensure all the services that they're offering through EIDs, they have to ensure that it's actually benefiting people. things like I know GRA is probably one of the government services where they're digitizing effort has gone really, really well. Like when last I don't know when last you guys actually filed paper tax returns, you can just do it on the app. And the app is pretty reliable as well. So once you have those cases where things are functioning well, then I think more and more persons will try to sign up for it.
But
But like yeah.
Danny, the honest truth, I think more people will jump on board if they, like what Kiefer said, tie the cash grant to it.
Well, there's
But that
kind
can't
of
be that can't
yeah.
be the only incentive. You need to make more tasks that I find tedious and mundane easy. You need to streamline certain services for me with the use of this EID that would require me not to physically be in that building. That is the only benefit I would probably get out of something like that.
Yeah.
Well, to
Because
interject on that part, I think they should look at it on a demographic on the age population. Because if you look at it, young adults, we don't have time for much stuff. So if you can tell me, all right, we don't have to go to the bank, wait a whole half an hour in the line for do one of the transactions, that will be a benefit to a lot of young adults. Because remember, some people do a 9 to 5 and barely get a Saturday and Sunday to themselves. That Saturday, Sundays, sometimes we spend at the bank, at GRA, doing some application process. So if you tell them, here it is, we give you back control over time of your day, you skip in the lines, you going straight into it, you get in all your documents, you get everything verified, you get in the loan right away, pre-approved, wherever. I think a lot of the young individuals would hop onto it. And then we count on the young individuals to teach the elders, because all we know that old heads, they prefer the physical stuff. If they can't carry it or put it in a folder, they don't want it. It's too out of the world.
but that same thing carries more risk, because you know how old heads like to get the younger generation to help them with certain processes. Now, if me as an elderly person I have to go through this whole EID system. Now I have to, if it is that I'm incapable of understanding the process or incapable of understanding the system just because of where I am at that age, I have to now rely on the youth to help me. Now I have to trust the system and trust that person who is helping me to do right by me. Who's to say that person won't try to be malicious with my EID?
Yeah,
So I think
the old
there
age.
should be additional fail safes in it, right? Because
I think some leeway should be given for elder folks as well, because you can't expect an individual of a certain age to want to adapt to something, not because of they don't want to, but as you explained just now, they're unable to adapt it in understanding wise. And given that you have to put your trust in somebody, we should get somewhat of a leeway to still have that physical aspect, but over the year or over the time being, have it phase out as that generation goes on or dies out.
I feel they should have some sort of seminars in it, like support seminars, like how NDMA does put up these internet hubs in the interior and also hold seminars to teach people. So if that is possible.
Yeah, well, remember a new system like this, say they're gonna have to do a lot of education and sensitizing and so on. And those older folks, they have to be included. You can't really price them out, for lack of a better word. You can't really price them out of the system. NIS has been trying. The government has been trying for NIS, for the persons who are collecting NIS benefit to get bank accounts for years, so that they could directly deposit those monies. But old people, they're never going to trust a banking system. They prefer to physically have their cash in hand, right? And one of the things that to get people to use the system, it reminds me of the world's largest biometric identification program, which is something in India. And people don't really talk about this very much, but even though it's the largest one in the world, it has close to over 1 billion people registered on it. And it's like they have a 12-digit numbering system. They also capture biometric information, all 10 of your fingers, both eyes, and also a facial scan, right? So they have really, really good information on those people. And what they try to do, they said that it's voluntary, So they're not going to force you to do it. However, they're offered every single services possible through the EID system. So while it's voluntary, the service is now ubiquitous. So technically, you don't have to. However, it's like the de facto necessity for accessing all government services. And that's kind of like a sly way of getting people to more and more buy into it. I mean, you might want to consider the ethical side of things, that you're making it voluntary, but you're making it extremely difficult to not take part in it, right? And a couple of the major things that happened, there was a big issue about denial services. Like a whole set of communities in the rural areas of India could not have gotten into the system because, again, they don't have the support system. There's technical failures. For the older people, like who usually works in the field very hard, their fingerprints wore out, so you can't really get fingerprints from them, and they have been neglected because they are priced out of the system. So all those things got to be taken into consideration. We have the opportunity to make it a really impressive system because we don't have that many people in Guyana. And I always come back to this. Guyana has the opportunity to bypass all these growing pains that these other countries had, only if it's implemented properly.
So I'm listening to you, and I don't know if I'm just paranoid, right? But it sounds to me that it started off as something like for welfare, and then there was like this mission creep where it evolved into like this de facto requirement for like banking, telecom, taxes, or whatever it is. So now I'm thinking now, what is to stop the government from using this for additional surveillance beyond the original scope of what they're telling the citizens it will be used for?
Well, that is why we need robust systems in place. The Data Protection Act, the Cyber Crimes Act. You see, while Guyana is digitizing fast, we're digitizing and going through digital transformation without guardrails in place. And it's these guardrails that's going to keep this system in check and ensure it benefits people. Right? Without it, the government is going to have, the government of the day is going to have quite a tremendous amount of power in their hands. What it also calls for is for institutional capacity. The minister's office, whoever that is, whoever is the commissioner of data, they have to have really good foresight to not be pressured by the government of the day to misuse of it. I know what we're all thinking about. When they're going to come to the big event every 5 years, somehow the government of the day gets their hand on the information stored in the EID database and they use it. Well, not use it, they misuse it for campaign, targeting ads, and all these things. However, it was already done. If the guardrails are in place, it will prevent that from happening. And we have pretty bad history when it comes to data privacy, right? You wrong somebody in some way, they just pay somebody in GRA, they flash all your information and post it on Facebook, right? So again, these guardrails, they got to be in place. And it's more about, has to do with sensitizing, but it also has to do with enforcement, right? Some of these breaches, you have to put some penalties in place to ensure other people don't do it, right? Maybe fine a company a large amount of money. If some persons in GRA got caught, maybe make an example of them. But then again, there's also the ethical consideration. The person could have done it for the very, very first time, and then they got caught. Would it be fair enough to punish them with the maximum of penalty?
Well, it depends on the level of data that could affect somebody. Like they should be, because what is these documents that you're posting is not like, oh, you can go and change it the next day to make sure nobody have access to your data. An ID, how long before it used to take? A couple months, I think. Now I think it takes a couple weeks, if I believe so. When you leak these documents, this is not like a card, a bank card. You can call the bank and be like, okay, freeze my account. No, this is something that's gonna take a while just for somebody to get a newer copy or a newer version. So I think they should be punished to the maximum because you're put in a position where you have access to everyone's personal data as personal documents. Those documents now have access or can tie to banks, your education, your health records, and so forth. You're basically given away that person's entire life from beginning to end.
Force
Yeah,
time
yeah,
gonna pay the fine, man.
yeah. The bar got to be set very, very high.
So because if you can't get forced time, because here's the thing, forced time they'll be like, alright, they can collect some money a little bit from the extra forced time because they know in the back of their head, alright, I'll get let off a little with a little warning or a touch on the wrist. And they can call a high number to whoever want get this document for somebody special. Alright, call a 5-10 million. If I gotta pay 2 million bond or whatever, okay, good. You take it at one time. So it has to be set high because it's something that if you get leeway, they will abuse it no matter what.
So my question is, right? Just pivoting a little bit. You know how sometimes when you get pulled over with your from the police, and then they like take your driver's license. They like people like to say, "Oh, this is government property. You're not allowed to take the driver's license." Now, my question is, who would this EID belong to? Is it my property? Is it government property? Am I giving up the rights to my data to the government?
You kind of picked them out of my head because that was one of the things I wanted to bring up next. Like, who owns the citizens' data? Like, is it you, the person, or does it the government who actually owns it because you're accessing their services? It's an open question. It's an open question.
Do you guys what was it again? Any personal data or data analytics, if you notice in big corporations like Microsoft and so forth, when you give up that data that they analyze, it's technically owned by them by whatever legal jargon, and they can resell the data to whoever wants. So if we apply that terminology or how corporates like Nvidia, Microsoft use our analytical data to sell off, it could be governed fully.
But then that would give the right of the government of the day to use it for their own benefit, because in a society like Guyana, there's hardly a separation between government and a political party. So if it's owned by the government, then they can use it when it comes to that election every 5 years.
Exactly. Because they could say they're not breaking any laws. This data belongs to the government.
That's true. That's why we have to read the bylaws with a fine print.
Now I have another question. This applies to the citizens, right? Now, looking through the lens of a foreigner that's coming together, whether to do business, whether to work. Now, what rights do I have now? Or what protection do I have now that you're capturing specific data for me? What is it that what data are you actually capturing for me, and what rights to it do I have? Can I ask you to delete this data once I leave the country? I no longer have any ties with Ghana, or I'm leaving, etc.
Well, that doesn't even have to apply to foreigners alone. It can apply to Guyanese as well. If I no longer feel secure, I no longer feel safe using EID, can I request that the office deletes my entire digital footprint that they captured for me? I don't know if those provisions are in place. And there is the digital ID card registry, the government website. You go through there, it's basically promotional material. You can't really find anything there. Like, there isn't anything that says like, these are your rights, these are not your rights. Like, where is this information stored, by the way? Is it stored on the cloud? Is it stored locally? Those are questions that need to be asked, and we don't seem to have it.
Most of our storage infrastructure has to be cloud-based, if I can recall correctly, because though the GPL where I work at, we have our own server base. A lot of applications, sometimes we put it to be cloud-based storage.
I think it's true. Oh, sorry. I was going to say,
well, the EID storage, but I doubt whether they're cloud-based.
When I say cloud-based, I mean if it's the sort of physical servers are in Guyana, or it's stored on some servers overseas, or something like. Yeah.
So NDMA would get this physical server they have.
So to add to that, do they have a backup server in case that server goes down?
NDMA
Well,
has cloud, has warm and cold sides.
yeah.
Because leaving out cyber attacks and so forth, a server can freak out on a normal day based on traffic. Or if
All right.
somebody did an update and it went wrong.
So, back to the question where Gandhi asked, if for retract your EID, that person would go back into the line. That is the
Let me put them on a-
now you gotta go back to the old ways, and if the business say that you was doing everything online, we don't do the old ways anymore. What happened to you there?
Well, that'll be one of the things that we have to worry
EID,
about.
right?
Yeah.
They want the service anymore. Line.
I think normally
So now
businesses have a
when they
way
go to do
revert
business
back to
the old way,
system in the,
remember
in
bank?
the given provision that the new system fails. Reverting back to the old system
Alright.
should be a fails.
Why I ask a Rex? Why I ask that? Because right now them are bank now customers online, and you can go and say you want your book. You are remain to switch the card.
Well, so there should be some leeway in organizations because, for example, in Republic Bank, when you want to do a wire transfer, they heavily try to recommend you to do it on the app. However, if you press them enough, you could have them do it manually for you, where you provide the details and they send it out. So, like for consumers that are a bit conscious on their data privacy and so forth, systems or bylaws should be placed that, given that the fact that if an individual wishes to not utilize their EID, whatever application or services provided by a corporation should have a alternative path using manual or regular manual method for them to sign up or to proceed with those services.
I have another question. I got a lot of questions. Don't worry.
Man, you bring it to a lot of stuff tonight.
Right?
Yes. Since talk about information leaking, you have a lot of questions.
You know, right? Was there any mention?
It begs to wonder what kind of information you have, my dear friend, that you don't want to release.
I was gonna ask. So all these things we're talking about, do you know if the government is releasing some type of memorandum to the public, listing stuff like, where the data will be stored, the purpose for it, if there be an extended scope, incentives behind opting in, if you can opt out. So I wonder if there's a memorandum like this, or is it just word of mouth?
I think in addition to the Digital Protection Act, there's also the EID Act. I think it's called the Digital ID Card Act of 2023. It's around the same time that the Data Protection Act came out, and it has some information there. I think, but one of the things that is left out there, this is not what answering your question, but one of the things that was left out is cancellation of your EID. You can't really, there is no way for you to go and say you want your EID to be deleted. The only way that it can be removed from the system is if you die. I think they would remove you from the active database if it shows you, if it found you falsifying information. That's the only time you can have your information deleted. So it's not really, it can't really go away. When it comes to, yeah.
So I could say like, delete my record. I think I wanted to mistake information. They said delete it, and then just forget about them for the rest of the time.
No, I'm talking about deleting your whole ID, your whole personality from the system. You can't do that. It doesn't cater for that. If you maybe inadvertently give some wrong information, maybe you can probably write to them and tell them, look, this information I gave you, it wasn't really correct. It was a mistake. They would probably update it in the system, an administrative update, but they will not delete anything. They won't delete your whole. If you just don't want to be guiding anymore, and you want to move to, like, I don't know, Canada or somewhere, they can't delete it. It doesn't make provision for deletion.
But why in that case is
All right. So these information are these information are they new information, or they also go into GPO and get information?
I mean, that's not going to be stated in the act. That's just how we're going to implement it. And the company that they're working with, they will probably decide on that. But to go back to Kiefer's point, I don't know if they're going to send out memorandums. If they're starting with the public sector employees, they'll probably send memo to those different organizations. So like OIM in education, they'll probably send a memo to each of the REOs, each of the region. They will then send it to all the other chief executive officer, and then they would funnel it to the different schools. But I don't know how they're gonna send a memo to the private citizens. They probably just have to have some booths set up, do some advertisement, do some education, some sensitizing, and then have persons sign up voluntarily. It's not like a draft for war or anything, but you have to go. They get it conscripted.
I have a conspiracy theory, right? So absence of incentive, of a proper incentive. I'm sitting down thinking, why does the government want me to have this EID so bad? Is it to help populate data for another service or another agenda? For example, I was sitting down thinking about the smart city, these traffic cams that they have around Guyana, right? Now, don't you think the easiest way to populate the citizens' data for that CCTV database would be to have these EIDs?
I mean, it would make it easier. Like if I left Borby, say I got paid toll. If I left Borby, say it tracked me to Joshua, tracked me everything I do in Joshua, every store I went in, every transaction I did, and then tracked me back home.
So they won't. So I won't say 100% sure, but I'm confident. Even if it wasn't, they won't say it's the purpose for the EID, but the information would be used. So now it has me thinking, what other information will they use, or what other service they would use these EIDs for that they're not going to tell the citizens until it's late. Until it's too late. We already opted in. We can't do anything about it. Are there going to be systems in place to show me what services my EID is tied to that I didn't know before?
Yeah, that would definitely be something that it would have to be disclosed very early, because if you're gonna get the AIDs, it's gonna mean all government ministries or arm of the government gonna have access to your information. So maybe something in Ministry of Education share something to the Ministry of Finance, then share something to the Ministry of Home Affairs, the interoperability of the data and so on, moving from department to department, which is also one of the strong points of the Estonia e-residency. If any organization, any ministry of government, if they access your information at any point in time, you get a notification. So maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning, the GRA access your tax returns. You get a notification on your phone, in your email, via text that this happened. But I'm not. You might just get a notification because of courtesy, not for you to approve it or not. Right?
That's beautiful. I think that's the type of transparency that we need. Something like this. I would even carry it even further to have a portal or web page that shows me how often my EID was used, and give me an account or a tally of what services my EID is attached to.
Yeah, that's how they do it over there. You got a full audit of it. Nobody can get access to it without you knowing. And when it was accessed, how many times it was accessed, all of those things, they would be on the service there. So once that kind of system is built into our EIDs, it would build trust. And that's what we're talking about. It would make it transparent, it would build trust in the system. And those who are hesitant of buying into the EID system will start to gradually buy in. The easiest way to get Guyanese to buy into it is to say, look, your cash grant is gonna take a couple of days to get in, or maybe immediately. However, the persons who don't have the EID, if you restrict them from getting the cash grant to make it look like they're gonna have to go through all the different steps and wait long to get it, then you're gonna get pushback from them because they are feeling left out of the system. So you gotta get
Well,
some good, solid incentive, but you also have to make the system trustworthy.
well, that's how most Guyanese end up with bank account through the last cash grant.
Yeah, I recall a few persons they didn't have bank account. They showed up to the ATM thinking that they could cash it out there, but they had to get accounts to cash out the cash grant. So yeah.
Now I'm thinking, what new services is the government going to create that they'll try to use this EID as an incentive to persuade us to opt in? Because as it is right now, I don't see a need to opt in, and until they create a more lucrative or more less demanding method or from mundane tasks that I'm currently doing, I don't see any reason for me to create this EID. And there's going to have a lot of people that are going to oppose going in to create the EID. They're going to get pushback, and with enough pushback, the project would fail. It's going to be an incomplete data set.
Yeah, if they don't have enough of Guyanese to buy into it, it's probably going to create like a two sets of system. You'll have one set of people with EID, a small handful, and those without. And that actually is going to make government more inefficient because they have to split effort between those who have and those who have not.
I think if they do like what GT&T did with the when they first came out, the fact that you could get a return. What GT&T did with the MMG, if they do a style like that, like GT&T bring out a return, you could get a return from it, and the users bounce up to thousands, that they could make $1 from it. That's the only way I see people would buy into it.
Yeah, for me personally, I think it will be hard for the government to incentivize it financially. They just have to ensure that what currently exists is bettered by the EID system. So things like I think off my head: passport, driver's license. When you upgrade your driver's license, I'm pretty sure housing application is probably going to be included, but I don't know how much. Voting is going to be out. I doubt whether Guyanese are going to buy into voting online. Getting your board certificate, all whatever benefits comes directly from government. It can be just more than financial. It can be direct benefit transfer, like things like pension and so on. Whatever benefit you get, like there is school cash grant. There's also disability benefit. All those things, yes, they can go through it. But they have the services that they build, the services that people can access. It has to be really top notch to have them move from what is currently being offered via in-person visits and so on to the EID system. That's the only way they can get it. In addition to that, the transparency has to be there. The citizens of Guyana have to buy in. They have to start trusting the system. And we pretty have like a bad track record of how trusting governments with our personal information. Now, with that being said, what are some like actionable things that you think the office, whichever office is responsible for this, I think is the Mr. Landela's office, the Attorney General's office. What are some things that they can do to actively ensure that trust of the system is built in?
I think more awareness is one. Allowing citizens to be a part of the process is two. Having like council meetings or with the people to sit down and hear their grievances out, allow them to be heard and see their perspective, and then instead of like telling them it has to be this way, hear them out and then educate them on why this would be better.
Yeah,
because if they don't, if they don't do this, what's going to end up happening? Piggybacking off your previous statement, what might happen is just you're gonna you're gonna try to like renew your driver's license, and they say, oh, we don't renew it this way anymore. You're gonna have to have the EID.
Yeah, if there's proper education also in place, people conspiracy are gonna start to pop up. Like, so some random person is gonna make a statement, and because they don't have alternative information from the government, that becomes a de facto correct thing, right? It leaves room for all these conspiracy theory to get in, and most Guyanese are not gonna care really about the technical thing. Encryption is in place, it's totally clean out on the crowd. What they want at the end of the day is trust, and they can only get trust if you talk with them. But also that Data Protection Act, it has to be put, it has to actually start working. A commissioner has to be assigned, and that person really is gonna have a key role to play in getting Guyanese to buy into it.
Also have to enforce the punishments. They can't just allow instant, let me say, the force run with government employees. Someone did, let's say somebody pays somebody to flash the documents or to get the documents to somewhere else. That person they cannot give leeway to that person, because if you're thinking about getting that EID and you see on the news, person just gets like 100,000 bail, gone out, you will feel the need that, okay, well, why should I get it? These culprits that steal in my data, steal in my documents, they just got billed probably half my paycheck just to get out.
Yeah, the punishment, the kind of regulation and enforcement of the rules and regulation that governs it, because it's a really important thing, right? Having that amount of information is really powerful. One of the other things I think the system would definitely need is independent audits of the system. You can't have the police investigate the police, so you can't have the people who run the ID to audit the ID every now and then. So they got to be independent, transparent audit. Imagine if somebody has access to this, they duplicate their identity or make up fake identities, 5 themselves and 4 other person doesn't exist. When cash grant time comes, 4 sets of cash grant, right? All these things would dent confidence in the system.
I was gonna say this whole thing might create an easier process to commit unethical acts. So how people is normally buy the license. It was becoming harder now because of the system in place. So with this whole EID tying to your license, it might just be with the click of a button. I could create a license for a friend if I was in the system. So now I feel like we might have to like swear in people.
Yeah, well, yeah, that should be hold them to like some standard, swear in. If you do that for like, I don't know if you guys know this, but when teachers go and set national exam paper, they actually have to do a swearing in. So they stand up, they raise their hand, they read the code or the code of conduct, and that says, okay, we're gonna do this here, we're not gonna share the test paper and so on. So I think, swearing in people, that can add a level of legitimacy to it. But in my opinion, I think it's gonna make it a little bit more difficult. That is, if the guardrails are in place, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for people to buy their license, because they're going to be an audit trail, and that audit trail they can point out if somebody did buy their license. However, if the appetite is not there to follow it and track it down, then there's no point. There's no point.
I believe sometimes they might select firms that they have good relationships with that might carry out a strict audit on the organization to help save face with the organization, because I'm pretty sure they find a lot of things that are wrong when they do these audits, but just omit this information from the process, from the report. Sorry.
Yeah, because if I'm hiring you to audit me, I'm hiring you to audit me because I want to look good. So I don't think I would hire you to come and find dirt on me, right? So, gentlemen, I think you guys want to wrap up with a couple of final insights.
I'm still paranoid, but I believe with the right amount of education and the right level of transparency, I could be convinced to partake in this whole EID process. I'm just concerned about who are the parties that are going to be involved with my data, and if I can opt out, if I don't feel safe or comfortable anymore in this whole new system. And if the government can address these fears that I have and that I'm sure many people have, I feel I would be more persuaded to try this.
To be
Uh,
honest, for me, I would probably be like on the last few waves of persons who want to get on this thing. Because, for instance, when let me say a new Samsung phone comes out, I would prefer to wait for several hundred people to buy it, give the reviews, let the minor accidents happen to them first, to then reflect, okay, well, the issues happened, they fixed it, now I'm going to jump on.
Yeah, test dummy style. Yeah, I like it.
Exactly.
Final thoughts, Zulfikar?
I'm with the test dummy stuff. I wait, be the last to jump on. But opt out. If I get an opportunity, I would rather opt out at any time. Don't tie me to the government.
Well, you see, me on the other hand, now if I have the opportunity, I would, I would sign up for the first time just to see what it is about. However, if the information that I came across that you can't delete it, it probably make you hesitant. But what Keith said earlier, I think that is extremely important. There has to be transparency. That is the only way persons are going to trust the system. You must have that transparency. Okay, look, all these organizations are going to have access to your information. It's going to be used for this. They're going to be a clear separation of government and political party. Once you're educated on it, person being more and more convinced. You can't just have the president show up at the press conference and then talk about it. That's not going to be sufficient. There must be more targeted education specific to government policies and rules and regulations and guardrails that are in place. However, Guyana has the opportunity to do something that very few other countries have done, and they're struggling with. Good. So as we, as a country, embrace this digital transformation, it's a necessary step. We can't get away from it. This kind of transformation is a necessary step for modernizing the country. However, we as citizens should not be forced to choose between convenience of doing things, but also having our privacy violated. So it has to be secure, it has to be transparent. As Keith said, persons must be held accountable for the EID system. And this can only happen if data protection becomes more of a national policy rather than something that happens in Parliament. Right. So as we move towards a digital future, the real question that has to be answered and asked and answered is whether Guyana will adopt EIDs, but whether Guyanese will trust the information to be safe. Right. So, gentlemen, thank you guys, and I think we, for our listeners, we post some very critical things for them to think about. We bring some new things to their minds for them to think and talk about, and we shall look back at this podcast in about a year's time and see whether EIDs is successful or if it has not been successful. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.